sports cars are getting even more expensive. And if there's one sports car that you should buy, it is the 911. And here in the facelifted 992.2 Carrera S, I'm going to review all of the updates, all of the changes, and of course, get a deep down in the 911. So follow on in this review. When you see a 911 going down the road, you know that it's a 911, and that is of course the same with this facelifted one. Just look at it and look at this very red paint. This is an S, and you see that on the air intakes or the ribs here. They are horizontal, not vertical, as in the GTS. So that's one way of differentiating it. But now we'll talk about the things that have made this into the facelift, because the facelift is supposed to give you more for the money, even though it's of course more expensive. This gets more as standard, which is always a nice thing. Here we have the adaptive LED headlights. They now come as standard. You have 20-inch in the front, 21-inch in the back, and behind everything you have the pre-facelift GTS brakes. So 408 in the front, 380 in the back, giving a more consistent braking performance. But we'll talk about that when we drive the car. This has Porsche torque vectoring plus as standard, and it's also fitted with the PASF, which lowers the ride height by 10 mm and give you rear wheel steering. That's an option, and this is fitted with that as well. But in the back, that's where one major thing has also changed. We're now at the back of the facelifted Carrera S, and it looks as good as the front. The rear looks a little bit more aggressive, I would say, especially when the spoiler is up like this. But when it's down, it's a little bit more sleek, but you can see that it has a lot of heft here in the back. The S is supposed to give more horsepower, and that is of course the same with this facelift. The turbos are new, and some new computer magic gives this 30 extra horsepower, 480 combined output, 530 Newton meter, and with the Sport Chrono package, which this has option, you go from 0 to 100 km an hour in 3.3 seconds from only the rear wheels. This is not the 4S. But one important thing that this car has is the Sport exhaust. That now comes as standard because the majority of people that spec this car fitted it with Sport exhaust, so now it just comes as standard. That gives it a little bit more sound. So if we start the car up, you hear that flat 6, 3 liter, and give it some revs. It's a decent sound. People doesn't give it the credit that it deserves, and when you drive it very hard, it sounds even better when you sit inside. We now have a digital gauge cluster and of course the latest generation infotainment system. Everything is now digital apart from the Sport Chrono, which you get with the Sport Chrono package. There's a lot of piano black plastic here, but you have buttons for selecting the Sport exhaust, for deselecting the traction control, setting the different levels of the suspension, and even controlling the temperature. The things that you use are buttons, same on the steering wheel, and twisting and changing the different drive modes. It's a very usable interior, albeit in this spec a very dark interior. I would rather have something lighter, something with a little bit of color. You do have the push mode here, or the red button, which gives you the sport response. So 20 seconds of more response than what you would have regularly. And behind me you have the extra option, which doesn't cost anything, rear seats, which basically no one apart from very young children will fit in. So talking quickly about the infotainment system, and you can see things are a little bit app-based, but they are where you expect them to be. You have quick menus to go into navigation, to the home menu, to the media, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and settings to control the different setup of the car. Sport, normal, sport, sport exhaust, spoiler, fold out. and things like that. But of course, if you switch the drive mode button on the steering wheel, you have that as well. But if you go back again, you have performance. So depending on how much brake I'm applying, you see that the tires, how much pressure and how much temperature is in them, and even the engine, how much torque is being generated. But on the digital gauge cluster, you have even more information about the oil temperature, the water temperature, and stuff like that. These seats are 16 or 18 way adjustable, and they are fairly comfortable. They give you some side support, but they're not too huggy. Unfortunately, I don't think they are that comfortable. There's a lot of pressure here and not enough support up. There's a big gap behind my shoulders that's not getting the support that it needs. And it doesn't matter how I'm placing the seat, I'm not getting enough support up here. So my neck and my head is getting tired on long journeys. That is the only thing that I found to complain about, but it's a major part when you're driving the car. And driving the facelift, the Carrera S, and here in some more normal driving, what's there to say? Well, it's a sports car. It's stiff, it's low to the ground, you get some feedback through the steering wheel. The braking pedal is a little bit different compared to a regular car, but everything makes you feel like you're driving something special. It's quiet, even though you have the now standard sports exhaust. The sound system in this standard option Bose is decent. Not the best, but not the worst either. So it's safe to say that even though you're driving this normally, you know that you're driving something a little bit more special or unique. Does it feel 180,000 euro unique? Maybe, maybe not. But here's the kicker. What the Carrera S or the 911 in general does so extremely well is that it does everything so well. It does the normal part so well. The whole package is so well packaged. And it is difficult to find any major faults, but I have found some. And one of them is the active cruise control, especially the lane assist. It is not good at all. It is on the limit of being non-existent sometimes, and it does a pretty poor job at keeping me within the lines. There's nothing redeeming about it. Secondly, the braking dust. You get so much brake dust buildup even when you're driving this normally and driving it a little bit more spiritually, and you will have to wash them after a couple of hours of use. It's that bad. And if you don't want to wash your car every day, well, go for the ceramic brakes. And of course, if you want something better performance, you can also go for it. But there are two positive sides with having these Porsche ceramic brake discs. Another thing that is pretty poor, and I complained about it before, so now it is 2 for 2 or even 3 for 3. The navigation, it is not predictive at all. If there's a car queue coming, it is not recalculating the route and adding the predictive extra time. It is not taking a different route either. It is just doing its thing. So if you want to use a certain navigation, I would use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. The PDK gearbox is amazing, you know that, and I'll talk more about how amazing it is when you're driving it more quickly. But when you're going forward and then backwards and you need to switch gear, there's a whole lot of nothing. It takes a lot of time for the gear shift to engage. So you're moving backwards and you're moving backwards and then you're moving forwards. There's no huge control over what's happening when you're going forward and then want to go back, and you're parking and you're doing things and you are in a hurry. Then this gearbox is not the quickest. But there are a whole lot of upselling points. There are a whole lot of positives. These seats, they are both heated and cooled, and cool they do, and heat they also do. So it's great for cooling down your back when you're driving a little bit more quickly. The steering, as I said before, normally it's fantastic. And so is the gearbox coupled with the engine. The torque makes it very easy to drive this normally. You don't have to use that much throttle. The turning radius is fantastic. I think it's especially because this is fitted with the PASP, which lowers the ride height by another 10 millimeter. It gives you rear wheel steering, and it makes it very, very agile, especially when you're parking, you're in roundabouts, you are doing things that needs a little bit of more turning radius. It's a well-built car. And you're paying a premium for the 911 because it is actually standing out in that aspect in terms of the build quality. But now we need to test the more spirited driving, the sports car aspect of the 911 and this Carrera S. So we start in normal, and let's give it some beans. It kicks down. It's quite quiet from the exhaust, but you still hear the turbos. Yes, you do get some turbo sound. It does kick down when you want it to, you just have to learn. And even in comfort or even in normal, still have plenty of dynamic characteristics. It's not lazy at all. I'm turning in here in a hairpin, and you get more than enough of control of the body. The steering is precise enough while still being a little bit light. I mean, it is fantastically calibrated, this normal. It soaks up the bumps, but if you're driving it very, very quickly, you can feel that you need a little bit more stiffness from the suspension, which you will get in the more aggressive driving modes. Let's switch it over to sport here. And in sport you have the normal suspension setting, but the exhaust is in the more aggressive mode, so you get more exhaust sound. And you definitely hear a difference there. And the higher up you are in the rev range, the better this flat six sounds. There's no question about that. But in sport, it still is a little bit docile. It's not that super aggressive. You can play around, but it's not the ultimate hunker down driving mode. Corner here, turning in, turns in beautifully, brakes, bite quite high up, but you have an amazing feel of when they are biting. And then you have the flat six sound there as well. Such an amazing sound that plays so well into the character of the car. In Sport Plus, the suspension is quite stiff, so driving it in Sport Plus normally is nothing that I would recommend, but here on some more broken roads, some more undulations, the quicker you drive, the more the suspension comes to its element. Since I've not tested the previous Carrera S, it's difficult to give any sort of comparison, but certainly those extra 30 horsepower is doing something. But if you want the utmost control, you of course have the manual controls as well. So and they shift very, very quick, very responsive. This is the Carrera S, it's not the 4S. And some people might say, well, the 4S, you're four-wheel drive, you have more traction. I never once found myself needing more traction than what I get in the Carrera S with the tires up to temp. On the back road like this, it is more than plenty. And this is somewhere in the middle. If you want something more, you have the GTS and then the turbo, but under you have the Carrera T, which is manual, and then the regular Carrera. So I think this is an incredible sweet spot, and the public says that as well, because this is one of the best selling 911s on the market. And I do understand why, because it's such a well polished sports car. It's a fantastically polished sports car. But where is the edge? Where's the thing that I hate but also and at the same time love. So don't buy this because it's an ultimate bone-crushing, track-ready weapon. Well, it can of course do that, and it has the credentials to back it up, and you feel that it's light, and that's what sets this car apart from, for example, an M4. This is lighter and more agile, and that makes it possible to control the weight easier. It may not have the ultimate punch and explosiveness of the S58 engine. But this flat 6 is of course a flat 6. It's unique, it's characterful, especially when you're ringing it out. I mean, the drive out of the corners, the rear wheel agility that you get when you power out, the brakes, the turning, the way that you can place the car. I don't have to make so many micro corrections on the steering wheel and just place it beautifully on the road. Then the suspension that's just absorbing all the micro vibrations, controlling the weight, and then that flat 6 singing like an angel. What's there not to like? Well, the price. 170,000 euros as a base price, give or take, and this spec to over 190,000 euros. That's a lot of money. What are my conclusions for the facelifted Carrera S? Well, it is an amazing, well-rounded sports car. It's been finely tuned to an inch of its life for decades. And this is just the latest iteration of the Porsche 911 product. It does everything so well. But on the other hand, where are the flaws? Where are the excitement in a sports car that makes me want to just get out and drive it and get something very unique? Well, the uniqueness in the 911 is that it does everything so well, and especially in this Carrera S that gives you a little bit more performance than the regular Carrera. Well, if you want something more, there is of course the GT3 and the GT3 RS and those types of car. This is somewhere in the middle, giving you a lot for the money, which is of course relatively a lot. But that is my final conclusion for the 911 Carrera S.